Hello everybody, welcome to another video and happy Friday 13th to all of you. Vic here, and today I'm going to rank all the Jasons, all 11 Jasons, well maybe 10, but it actually will be 11, which I'll explain in just a moment. So of course, I've covered the Friday 13th series in complete entirety, pretty much every topic you could possibly do, but I thought I'd finish it off here with ranking all the Jasons. We all have different opinions on what the best Jason is, what the worst Jason is. Let me know in the comments. Rank the Jasons for me in the comments. And of course, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up, the like button, and subscribe if you have not. Let's go with number 11. And look, this is kind of predictable, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Number 11 is Roy Burns from Friday 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. I know there's a lot of Roy Burns fans out there. I want to tell you guys, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Friday 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, I do have a lot of respect for the portrayal of Roy Burns, the portrayal of the copycat Jason. And the reason that I have respect for this portrayal of Roy Burns is that it actually really did influence the rest of the series. If you think about this, the way Roy Burns moves is very similar to what we would see from Zombie Jason in Part 6, 7, 8. Basically, the entire Kane Hodder thing, and even CJ Graham in Part 6. A lot of this is Zombie Jason here, right here in Part 5. It's a slow-moving, lumbering, taking his time, patient Jason, seemingly knowing all the shortcuts through all the woods, can be a mile behind you, but still end up right in front of you, as, you know, basically teleportation, of course. But that's all here with Roy Burns. So I don't know if the other actors actually studied the performance of Roy Burns, but this Jason, even though it's a human being playing Jason, you know, a copycat killer, it does feel like Zombie Jason. So you got to give some of that credit here to Roy Burns. I think even though I'm not the biggest fan of the movie itself, I have a lot of respect, admiration for the portrayal of Roy Burns, but it is last on my list overall. Let's go to number 10, and that's going to be Jason from Jason Goes to Hell. There's nothing really that wrong with this performance here. This is Kane Hodder kind of in his peak, his prime. He's played Jason a couple times. He knows Jason inside out. You know, the movements, the facial, like I'm saying facial expressions, not like facial expressions, but the movements, you know, the kills, everything is on point. But you got to get penalized for just a lack of screen time for Jason here. Jason's in this movie for about 6 minutes, shows up at the beginning, gets shot to shit by the FBI, blown to smithereens, and then comes back at the end. And at the end, it's kind of an odd portrayal of Jason, not from Kane Hodder, but the writing, because Jason, who really doesn't play with his food in, you know, other situations, here in Jason Goes to Hell, he's going to come back alive, and instead of going for quick hits and kills, he's going to have this weird fight scene with the character Steven where he just beats the shit out of him, throws him around the playground. It's just not characterly, it's not an accurate portrayal of Jason. So this has got to be number 10 on the list. But if Jason Goes to Hell was in the movie for longer, if he got maybe at least 20, 30 minutes of screen time and was here throughout the entire proceedings, I think maybe this might be higher on the list. Let's go to number 9, and this is going to be Ken Kirzinger, Freddy versus Jason. Listen, like many of you, I was disappointed to not see Kane Hodder in this movie. I felt like after Kane Hodder had played Jason in 4 previous outings, that he deserved to be here in this epic fight with Freddy. But let's take that out for a moment. Just judge Jason for itself. Is Jason himself a great character portrayal-wise? Well, of course, I've talked about it before. Jason being afraid of water makes no sense. I know it might be his subconscious. It might be going into his dreams, what he's scared of. But all that stuff still doesn't make sense when you figure Jason is very, very comfortable in the water in all the other sequels. You know, goes in the water happily, voluntarily, kills victims in the water, was at rest in the water, tied to a damn rock for a couple different sequels. So I didn't like that part of the portrayal. And then Jason, physically looking at him, he's a little bit too big in this movie, too lumbering, too big. I don't know. And then they're talking about casting Ken Kirzinger because he can emote better with his eyes. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to have sympathy for Jason. I don't want to see the emotion, the deepness behind Jason's eyes, you know, having a poetic soul inside there somewhere. I don't need to see any of that stuff. So for me, I don't think that it's a shining moment for Jason or Freddy vs. Jason. So it's got to be towards the bottom of the list. All right, let's go to 11, 10, 9. Number 8 is going to be Kane Hodder playing Jason in Jason Takes Manhattan. Old slimy slimehead Jason. This guy is so wet throughout the movie. He just feels slimy, wet, watery throughout the movie. Look, there's nothing wrong with this portrayal of Jason. This is actually, again, Kane Hodder in his prime, in his peak. He knows Jason very well. So Jason's fine here. Massive teleportation. I mean, he's just everywhere on the damn boat. I don't know if it was intentional that they made it that way, but Jason's fully teleporting. Jason on the roof with Julius is a great scene against the boxer knocking his head off. Little kid Jason the movie. I mean, turning back into a little kid at the end through somehow the toxic waste being turned back to a little kid, mask being taken off, Muppet face Jason, melting face Jason at the end. He has to lose points for that. If you take away the ending and give a normal ending to this movie, I may actually rank Jason higher, but seeing what he looks like on the mask, it's so poorly done that he can't get higher on the list. But it's just an average performance of Jason, in my opinion. Okay. Let's then go to number 7, and this is going to be Sackhead Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2. Sackhead Jason stands out because, he didn't have the mask yet, so he had to make do with what he had available, which was a sack, and this portrayal is a creepy version of Jason. This is human Jason at his most human, I would say, and I think that, does he stand out in a kind of big positive way? I think, he's running fast, looks creepy on the mask, the whole reveal at the end, I think that works well. So I think this is a good portrayal of Jason. I'm glad it was a one movie thing. I'm glad that when you get multiple movies of Sackhead Jason, I'm glad it ended with one movie. So I'm going to say this is also a pretty decent performance, but it doesn't really stand out for me. All right, let's move on now. Let's see. We are at 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Oh, all the way to number 6 already. Okay. Number 6, I'm going to go ahead and put Jason from Jason X. This is also including Uber Jason as well. In terms of Jason himself, Jason, by Jason X, he looks different because Kane Hodder, just weight-wise, he put a lot of weight, almost like he's on a damn mass gainer bodybuilding diet here. I mean, Jason's pretty wide, pretty big here, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just a natural progression. Jason eating a bunch of animals in the woods, a lot of protein, I guess doing push-ups between kills, has kind of bulked up here. So Jason himself is interesting looking with the, full head of hair and everything. And Uber Jason, I think, is I'm not the biggest fan because it's just it feels like it takes it out of the horror element and puts it more to a sci-fi element. Jason feels more like a robot when he's Uber Jason, but for a 20-minute section of a film, it is effective. It's a great. I wish it would have been a surprise though. They showed it in the trailer, which is a big mistake. It should just came out of nowhere in the movie. So for a solid 20 minutes, I think that Uber Jason's fine. But I'm glad again we didn't get a full movie of Uber Jason. So yeah, I mean, what you're seeing here basically is it's going to seem that I'm not the biggest fan of Kane Hodder. I think that Kane Hodder, for playing Jason 4 times, deserves to be recognized as the most prominent Jason just from playing him so many times. But he's never been my favorite Jason. I never thought that, Kane Hodder was the definitive Jason. I think that he played enough times where he should be the most well-known Jason. But I'm not the biggest fan of Kane Hodder as Jason in general, and that kind of shows here on the list. All right, this next one's going to be unpopular because I think that a lot of people rank this version of Jason very high. I'm talking about remake Jason, remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, 2009 Jason. Look, I think Jason looks awesome here. He's physically imposing. I mean, built like a damn rock. But for me, the only downside I have about this character is that it feels more like Predator to me. I said before, I feel like Jason, I understand that he's a skilled woodsman. He grew up in the woods and everything like that, but he seems kind of like almost, I don't know, much too skilled in this movie. And I know it's a weird complaint. I like Jason being kind of sloppy in a way. Basically, I like Jason being, having some skills. Obviously, someone pointed out to me in the comments and Friday 13th Part 3, obviously, he shoots the thing with amazing accuracy, which does maybe show that Jason really does know what he's doing. But Jason with a bow and arrow, I'm just not a big fan of that. But I think that ultimately, if we'd gotten more of this Jason, I would have been okay with it because it is a great, epic, imposing. I mean, imagine that Jason running at you. I mean, damn, what the hell? So I like remake Jason, but just not at the top of my list. All right, let's go on to Richard Booker playing Jason in Friday 13th Part 3. There's something very creepy about this Jason, and this is going to sound interesting, but this version of Jason to me is the most like Michael Myers. And what I mean by that is that for most of this movie, Jason's very, very patient. The way he hides in the barn, the way he's kind of hiding the shadows, moving slowly, walking around. It's really not the Jason we know in the other sequels, who I would say is more of a quick hitter, kills everything he sees. This Jason in Part 3 is oddly calculating and, really stalking his prey. He is playing with his food here. So I like this version of Jason. I especially like at the end, though. I mean, the whole chase scene with Chris, and then when the mask comes off, His makeup, everything looks so creepy here that I like this portrayal of Jason a lot. And one of the creepiest moments in the entire series is, I guess, maybe Chris having a dream at the end, which is in the boat. She looks up and sees Jason up there in the damn house looking out the window. To me, that is such a creepy scene that scared the shit out of me as a kid and has always stayed with me. So I love Richard Booker's portrayal of Jason here in part 3. I would have been fine with him continuing to play Jason throughout the series. All these versions of Jason, I feel like, would be, okay if you want to call him the definitive Jason, in my opinion. What's left on my list. So, moving on now, my favorite portrayal of Kane Hodder Jason is by far Jason in New Blood, Friday the 13th, Part 7. I want to say that I'm not a fan of the movie The New Blood. I think that of all the movies, this has the worst characters, the most cliched characters. It has the biggest example of scenes where you meet a character for them to die meeting the same scene, which is like the most laziest thing possible when you're just thinking the audience strictly cares about quick kills where you're killing characters who have no connection with the audience. That's lazy even for a Jason movie, and New Blood is chock full of that. But damn, they did such a good job with the makeup of Jason here. When Jason comes out that water and you see his damn rib cage holding out, his bones, you see the mask, even him being slimy as hell in this movie and watery doesn't really bother me. But I think it's by far the best portrayal that Kane Hodder did as Jason is here in New Blood. And yeah, I would have liked this exact makeup. I would have loved this in Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X. He looks so good. You really think for all the lack of continuity and like how much it messes up the timeline in New Blood, you can really tell they took a lot of attention to detail to Jason's look. And I think that has to be commended. All right, let's move on now. We're getting to the final few Jasons. And my number 2 is actually going to be CJ Graham as Jason and Jason Lives. I mean, Jason Lives is my favorite film in the franchise, and a lot of that is because I just think that when I think of zombie Jason and Jason in the Woods and everything like that, this is by far the most purest, best portrayal. I mean, everything from Jason coming out the grave to him killing the paintballers to him killing the cops, doing the Undertaker sit-up after getting shot. Everything about Jason in this movie works for me. And it's also, the movie has a humor with Jason, but it's not letting Jason himself be the humor. He's reacting to things around him. But future movies, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason X, I think that Jason was in on the humor. And I think there's something more pure about the humor being around Jason in this movie and not Jason himself. It helps that everything else in the movie, when you have characters to cheer for and characters that are likable, it makes Jason a little more scary because you're actually scared for the characters. You don't want to see them die. So it actually makes Jason's presence bigger, in my opinion. And when Jason's killing faceless characters, it kind of brings down Jason a little bit as well, in my opinion. That's, a burden that some of the sequels have that's not here in Jason Lives. You like all the human characters, even the sheriff, who I think is probably, for me, one of the best supporting characters in the entire franchise. When he has his little epic fight with Jason, it doesn't go too well for him, and unfortunately, a lot of backcrack can happen in that scene. But even that, I mean, it just makes Jason look that much more badass. Jason showing he has no damn fear in the water, walking right in the water at the end to get to Jason, to Tommy. And then how they kill Jason in this movie, it is sort of the purest way to kill Jason. I mean, I know that is getting into some voodoo stuff and maybe it doesn't make sense with the actual continuity, but the idea of returning Jason to his original resting place, I mean, it's a much more definitive ending to me than, just him getting hacked to pieces with a machete or being hung or, a knife in the head. Like the other endings for Jason are kind of stupid. And something about this, the idea that, hey, we can't kill him, but we can tie him to a rock and just have him at the bottom of the water. I think that's a great ending for Jason if they chose to end the franchise right there. But my number 1 spot, my favorite portrayal of Jason by far, no question, is Final Chapter Jason. I think the most purest form of Jason is still human Jason. So I was always going to go with one of the entries of 2, 3, and 4, but I just think that Ted White here as Jason in Final Chapter personifies everything we like about Jason. If you like the woodsman sort of skilled version of Jason, you have that. If you like the sort of calculating, kind of slow burn stalking his victims version of Jason Friday 13th Part 3, you get a little bit of that here with Part 4 Jason. Again, great makeup when the mask comes off. Jason looks fantastic. But he still has that human side. He's running fast as shit in this movie. This Jason runs fast as hell when he's chasing Trish at the end. It's a great chase scene. he still obviously makes noises, reacts when he gets hit, things like that. But also, this first Jason is brutal as shit. The death scenes here are amazing. Between this and Jason Lives, one advantage Final Chapter does have is that the makeup and the kills in Final Chapter are heads above the kills in Jason Lives. So for some, Final Chapter may be their favorite film in the franchise, and I think Ted White's portrayal as Jason's a big reason for that. So that's my list. I probably should have added in the Never Hike Alone Jasons. Maybe I have to rewatch those and do a list on the next Friday 13, add those in as well. But for me, that's basically it. I go Final Chapter, Jason Lives, New Blood is my top 3, and K-9's in the top 3, but I do think that for me, Ted White and CJ Graham are the most definitive versions of Jason. So I'm on board with those as my 2 favorites. Again, the comments, let me know your favorite Jasons. Happy Friday 13th. Of course, there's 3 Friday 13th this year. I'm planning this Friday 13th to probably watch, honestly, 3, 4, and 6. I think makes a great trilogy to watch, 3, 4, and 6. Throw part 5 right in the damn trash can. I'm not watching that one. But let me know also what your plans are for Friday 13th, which movie will we be watching. And until next time, you guys take care.